All right. Hello, everyone. Oh, the camera looks good, but let me make sure my sound is on point. Hold on. Microphone. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. So hopefully I sound nice and crisp and clear. Let me make sure that this is broadcasting to YouTube. I apologize for changing the times. I set this originally for 7:30, and then I left the office later than I wanted to. And when you get home from going into the office, you need to unwind for a little bit and just let your mind go for a little bit. And so I reset this to 7:45, but I have a lot to do in the morning, so I wanted to go ahead and get this going. So tonight we're going to talk about, well, I'm going to talk about the potential, well, the potential collapse of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, so this one, I guess, will fall under current events. It could arguably fall under politics and news. It could also arguably fall under business as well. And shout out to my mom. Hey, mom. She, at the beginning of this year, said, you should do more Black-centered issues and show more data. So this obviously impacts Black people, but not just Black people. It impacts all kinds of people. And this is an important. It's an election year, so a lot of people are looking at issues just like this. So I am going to play my intro. I'm going to play one of my Aaron Clary intros. I didn't have time to make up a special intro for this one, but I'm going to play my intro from Aaron Clary's visit to my channel from Enjoy the Decline. And I think of my library of introductions, that's probably the most appropriate, as a theme of this stream is going to be change. Things change. Things don't stay the same. The pendulum swings one way, and then in many instances, the pendulum swings back the other way. And in Aaron's book, Enjoy the Decline, he wrote that book about the United States potentially transitioning downwards permanently. So he was predicting that the United States the pendulum may not swing back the other way for the United States, but for DEI, for diversity, equity, and inclusion, it looks like we're seeing the pendulum swing back the other way to less diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm going to play this intro, and I have a piece I'm going to read. It's not a long one, and then I'm going to wrap this up. So I will see you. Thank you to whoever left that initial like. I appreciate that. That's always good. I don't have a special guest tonight like Dr. Tiasan Johnson, though I am going to try to track him down again. But I appreciate whoever left that like before I started the stream. That always helps. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this intro. Please, if you're going to hang out, if you're going to hop in and hop out, please smash that like button. If you're new, please consider subscribing. I'm within 20 subs of getting to 2,000. And if you have any thoughts on any of this, please let me know what you think there in the chat. Please let yourself be known. So I will see you on the other side of this intro. Please smash that like button. Please consider subscribing. You guys know the routine. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is it good? Is it bad? Why does it seem to be, why do they seem to be pulling it back at this point? Because of where I come from. See, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information.
You know, you might say 50s pop music wasn't the great. Okay, culturally there might have been some problems you might have had with no culture is perfect. But it was a pretty darn good society we had going on. And now it's forget culture or music or even if people are obese or overweight. As an economist, I'm like, we went from like, I'd have to look it up, but having a surplus around like 40, 50% GDP. Now we got a national debt of 110% GDP. Like the fundamental finances are absolutely shattered, absolutely shattered. And so we are a mere fraction of our former American selves. And so that, but the people who led that charge and opened that Pandora's box was the baby boomers.
Because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information. In this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information. Everyone, hold on for a second. I have Facebook open here on my PC, and I am in a group, and these distinguished gentlemen have decided that they want to start sending messages right now, and it's just going to distract me. So hold on. Greetings, the snowman, and also greetings, AB Media. Give me a moment here. People always decide that they want to call you or text you or start a chat on Messenger, you know, on Facebook when you're doing something. So I just had to close out of Facebook, which means I have to log back in. All right, everyone. Yeah, welcome back to Big Discussions 76. This is my original channel. If you're here, you know who I am. If you're new, if the algorithm brought you here, my name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar. I wear plenty of hats. Speaking of which, there are black stripes. It's a red shirt, but there are small black stripes here, so the hat does actually coordinate with the shirt. So I'm wearing a Chicago Bull snowman, Chicago Bulls colors. Shout out to the Jordan Bulls. Yeah. So today is May 8th, 2024, and I am going to talk a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the fact that it seems to be the people who extended it seem to now be taking it back. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. If any of this resonates with anybody out there and you want to make a donation to the channel, my super chat is live, and my Cash App and PayPal are here. And if you're watching on the playback, you can also leave a super thanks. All right, where did the stream come from? So when I don't have guests, I will typically feature a topic, something that I think is interesting, something that's current, and something that's novel. And something that's current and novel is the current state of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. So I am on Twitter X. There were predictions that Twitter X would be gone, as soon as Elon Musk, when he realized that he couldn't make profit off of it. My camera just did something here. But Twitter X is still there, and I'm still there. And as a blogger, I pay attention to what's being said there, and I follow an account called Black Girls Nerds, and they posted this piece. right here. I'm going to enable my screen share for a moment. They posted this piece. It's entitled "Attacks on Black Women Academics Continue. What Can Be Done?" And it goes into diversity. It goes into diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the fact that it's been taken back. Okay. I was going to feature that piece, but I was reading it at work today and I decided I'm going to read something else because of the tone of the piece and the theme of the piece. It's a very well written piece, but I don't know that it was necessarily the best fit for Big Discussions 76. So that article, that blog post is in the description box in case you out there in viewerland want to read it. And speaking of which, I've been thinking lately, I'm close to publishing part 1 of my book, and I've been thinking about what my brand is. And what's Dr. Dunbar's brand? Because when you publish a book and you present it, you're also presenting a brand. And my brand, I think it's curiosity. It's knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It's asking difficult questions, and in many instances, thinking of questions that people wouldn't normally ask and questions that people wouldn't think to ask, and asking the difficult questions. That's my brand. My brand takes my appearance more seriously than I did years ago. Shout out to the Image Guy. The Image Guy died about 2 years ago, and that's my brand. Reading, curiosity, and asking, in some instances, the hard questions like the ones I asked about 2 weeks ago or last week about the WNBA. Please smash that like button. If you are just coming in, please consider subscribing if you are not subscribed. So I'm going to start with this. So change. So this is my book project, The Engineers, A Western New York Basketball Story. I am close to publishing part 1. I hope you all purchase a copy of it once it once I publish it. I hope you all purchase a copy. A theme of this is change. Things change. Buffalo at one point, the story takes place in Buffalo. Buffalo was once a steel city, just like Pittsburgh. And Buffalo also once had a basketball team, the Buffalo Braves, which are now the Los Angeles Clippers. And once the Steel left, and once the Buffalo Braves left, that changed basketball in the city of Buffalo, and it changed the fortunes of a lot of kids in Buffalo who wanted to play basketball. So that changed a lot of things. So change is a part of everything. Okay. Cedric Webb asks an interesting question here. He says, do you think your association to BGS ruins your brand, Doc? No, it doesn't. I think I know why you're asking that, but no, BGS, salute to BGS Ibmore, the master teacher. He helped me grow here on YouTube. And I still find a lot of his conversations insightful. So no, I don't think it ruins my brand. No. Okay, said. All right. Things change. the world changes. The world has changed. Over on my science and technology channel, I've taken an interest in climate, and a controversy over there in the climate discussion is whether or not the Earth is changing on its own, or if man is causing the climate to change. One school of thought is that the Earth is changing on its own. The climate, the weather is not meant to stay the same. Relationships change. Okay, relationships change amongst family members. Relationships change amongst significant others. Relationships change. Maybe one day you're in love. Maybe on another day you guys are fighting like cats and dogs. Economies change. Economies go through booms. They go through busts. They go through prosperities, and they go through depressions and recessions. Movements change. Okay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion movements, they arise, and then due to various factors, those recede. So everything changes. Nothing stays exactly the same. And so in this instance, the question is why? Why would something like diversity, equity, and inclusion, why would those waters recede? And I was thinking before I got home, I have some personal experience with this DEI, even before DEI became DEI. And I'll be discreet about this, but in my current station, in my current place of employment, it's rumored that part of the reason I was brought on board where I work is due to DEI. And in some instances, people get hired because the people doing the hiring want to show that they believe in diversity. So, and I better stop that there. I better land the plane there because I probably already said too much. Okay, so this has been a big issue since around 2020 when George Floyd passed away, when George Floyd was murdered or killed by Derek Chauvin. There was a lot of controversy over what happened to George Floyd, but it's believed that a lot of this took off around that particular time. And now recently, the things that got caught in the news cycle were this. I'm going to go back to the Black Girl Nerds piece. To highlight two people. So the woman in the glasses, that's Claudia Gay. Okay, right there. And she was the Harvard president. And she came under criticism when this when this latest episode jumped off. And shortly thereafter, she got into hot water on Capitol Hill, and questions arose to her academic credentials. And it was she was implicated in academic fraud. Okay, so she was ousted from Harvard, and then the woman there, the woman there next to her, I was going to say with no hair, but I want to be respectful. That is, let's see, Dr. Candia. Let me look for her full name. Antoinette Bonnie Candia-Bailey. So she was the vice president at Lincoln University. So there are two Lincoln universities. So there's a Lincoln University, and I think they're both HBCUs. There are two Lincolns. One is in Pennsylvania, and the other one is in Missouri. So she was the vice president at the university in Missouri, and she accused the president there of I should have this memorized and ready to go. She died by suicide, and she accused the school's previous president, John Mosley, of harassment and discrimination. Okay, and received a termination letter from the historically Black university on January 3rd, and she committed suicide shortly thereafter. So those things, those two items there, those made news, and there was an outcry afterwards. And one was that blog post that I just showed, which was specifically geared towards protecting Black women in higher education. Any organization you work in, whether it's government, academia, or any kind of business, if you're gonna attempt to be in the C-suite, things can get pretty competitive and things can get pretty treacherous in there. And in a lot of instances, people, their whole lives are built upon their careers, and their careers become their whole reason for being. And with her getting fired from there, she probably she probably suffered some sort of depression, which led to her committing suicide. So big deal. This is a big deal. And across the board, we're seeing DEI repealed. So I have a piece here. I'm going to get into this, and then I'm going to wrap the stream up. Cedric says, DEI has been shown empirically to have many benefits to every organization. Attacking DEI will impact companies' bottom line to a certain degree, in my opinion. Attacking DEI will impact companies' bottom line to a certain degree, in my opinion. Well, over in the entertainment sector, companies like Disney and Warner Brothers, and many would argue that DEI has helped hurt the product in terms of cinema and movies. So that's a hot topic over there. And many people want companies like Disney to just get back to the business of making movies and quality entertainment, as opposed to worrying about things like DEI. But let me get to this piece, and then I will wrap the stream up. You all please keep letting me know what you think in the comment section as I go through this. It's not a long piece, but I think it's a nice, it captures what's happening now nicely. This is from, let's see, Axios. It's entitled The Backlash is Real Behind DEI's Rise and Fall. Okay, so this graph, so showing some data. Okay, my mother said, you need to show more data. This piece starts off with data. So this says mentions of DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion in quarterly earnings calls. So what you see there on the y-axis, that's time. You're going from 2020 to 2024. And on the y-axis, that is, I think that's numerous times DEI was mentioned in arbitrary units. In science, we call that arbitrary units. So in 2020, you can see that it spiked. Well, actually, right around 2021, it spiked. And then it dipped, and then it spiked again around 2022. And then it trended downwards, spiked again around 2023. And then it's trended downwards from there. So it peaked around 300, and then it's dropped now to 74. So many companies are, for whatever reason, departing from this. Okay. You guys keep letting me know what you think there in the chat. This reads as follows. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, was the hot thing in corporate America a few years ago. Now, not so much. Why it matters. The business community, long averse to political risks or controversies, backed away from DEI programs over the past 2 years in the wake of widespread attacks from lawmakers, high-profile rich guys, and conservative activists like former Trump aide Stephen Miller. The big picture: companies that never cared much about DEI or that fear lawsuits over programs are using the moment to back away. Let me read that again. The big picture: companies that never cared much about DEI or that fear lawsuits over programs are using the moment to back away. Others are sticking with these efforts, but doing it quietly. Between the lines, some business leaders are increasingly reluctant to speak publicly about the subject, but behind the scenes, they're fed up with DEI. Johnny Taylor, president of the Society for Human Resource Management, said in a January interview with Axios, the backlash is real. And I mean, in ways that I've actually never seen it before, he says. CEOs are literally putting the brakes on this DE&I work that was running strong since George Floyd's murder in May of 2020 pushed businesses into action. So a flashback. After George Floyd, the chief diversity officer role was the hottest position in America, says Kevin Clayton, senior vice president, head of social impact and equity for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Companies were hiring for these positions out of guilt, he says, noting that in 2020, he was pursued by more than a dozen employers. But some CEOs are feeling like they didn't hire well for these roles, bringing on people with civil rights backgrounds instead of more corporate expertise, says Taylor of SHRM. Okay. State of play: some businesses are cutting back funding, trimming DEI staff, and even considering pulling back on things like employee resource groups comprised of workers of various races, ethnicities, or interests. And some are changing programs designed to support women and people of color because of lawsuits. Many have been filed over these programs, more than 20 by Miller's America First Legal, and other companies worry about litigation. Comcast expanded a small business grant program called Rise for the Representation, Investment, Strength, and Empowerment last year to include entrepreneurs of all backgrounds. The company's 2020 press release about Rise discussed advancing Black businesses, but in 2022, Comcast was sued by an anti-DEI group that alleged the program discriminated on the basis of race. That suit settled in late 2022, and the following year, the Rise press release contained no language about race. Goldman Sachs opened up its Possibilities Summit for Black college students to include white students. Bank of America broadened internal programs to include everyone, as Bloomberg reported last month. The seemingly small changes, lawyerly tweaks executives call them, are starting to add up to something big. The end of a watershed era for diversity in the U.S. workplace and the start of a new, uncertain one, per Bloomberg. What they're saying: I'm very disappointed and concerned about a lot of corporations that are not fighting and are not continuing these critical programs, says Elizabeth Gore, president of Hello Alice, a fine tech that serves small businesses. Her company is fending off a lawsuit filed by America First Legal over a small business grant program that aimed at helping Black-owned trucking companies. Please hit that like button if you haven't. If you're new, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please smash that like button. Meanwhile, there are still companies committed to the principles of DEI, the idea of hiring people from diverse backgrounds, figuring out how to foster inclusive workplaces, and treating people fairly. But they're less likely to use those initials. Same with ESG, short for environmental, social, and governance. You can kind of get your programs growing without using the letters. Bruce Van Suwan, chairman and CEO of Citizens Financial Group told Axios Felix Salmon recently. Instead, Van Sayan, I don't know how to say that, said leaders can talk about their commitment to diversity and inclusion so that everybody feels that their voice is listened to and respected. We want to make sure that we don't trigger somebody with some of these words. The backstory: one reason companies created these programs is that there are widespread inequities in corporate America. 1.6% of Fortune 500 CEOs are Black, for example. Few women make it to the C-suite despite making up about half of entry-level jobs. The bottom line, companies started caring about diversity a lot more after a flurry of lawsuits with employees alleging race and sex discrimination in the 1990s and early 2000s, as this Harvard Business Review piece explains. Now, a new kind of litigation risk is sending them in the other direction. All right, as promised, that was short. Cedric says, Dr. Dunbar, how can people ensure their economic viability and marketability during the DEI backlash? Cedric, are you referring to the employee or the employer? Are you referring to the employee or the person looking for work, or the person doing the hiring? Can you expound upon that? I think personally, having a diverse workforce is good, but I don't think that should be the only metric dictating the hiring. I think you want to make sure that people are qualified to do the position. And I think that's the critical thing. If they're not qualified, you want to train them and bring them up to speed so that they can do the position and perform the position in a competent way. Especially when it involves things that everybody's going to be using, like bridges, like airplanes, like automobiles, like designing buildings. You want the most competent people performing those tasks. Okay, so Cedric says, how can people ensure their economic viability and marketability during the DEI backlash? Well, Cedric, I say you have to make yourself as competitive as possible. Regardless of what field you're in, you want to make yourself as competitive as possible, and make sure your credentials are sharp and as up to snuff as possible. Because the other thing, in C-suite settings at major universities, in corporations, in the federal government, one thing you hear from Black professionals is their placement there, their position, them being hired. The other thing that happens is that you get questioned for being there. Are you here because you're a minority hire? Are you here just because you're Black? Are you here just because you check the diversity box? If you're qualified, that probably hits you like a sack of bricks, because your competency is being questioned just because you are of color. So it's kind of a door a door that swings both ways. Cedric Webb says, how can people who could potentially lose their jobs due to the DEI backlash still be competitive in an environment where DEI is not valued? Well, I think the question is, are those divisions, are those roles were put into place post George Floyd, and do the companies still see those roles as valuable? Do the companies see that? Are those roles adding to the bottom line of those businesses? I think that's what's happening right now. And also, yeah, I think that's it. Let me go back to your cynical optimist says, we're having talks about demystifying DEI language at the Science Museum I work at this week. Cynical optimist, can you unpack that just a little bit? I'm going to hang on for just a little bit longer, then I'm going to wrap up. But when you say this demystifying DEI language, do you mean that they're trying to minimize it so that it's not actual DEI language? Can you unpack that a little bit? All right, while I wait for that, yeah, so yeah, it's definitely an interesting turn of events. I'm going to bring that data up one more time before I wrap the stream up. And it's interesting to see some of the content created here on this platform regarding DEI, because while it's had its supporters, it's had its detractors as well, even some of them who are Black. Okay. Let's see. So let me bring this plot up one more time. Let's see. So, yeah, so there's the spike again. It spiked around 2021. So if, as a scientist, this would be one big trend line. So it would all trend from that peak. That trend line is going down. Okay, if it's a stock analyst would consider this the same thing as well. It's a trend line that's going down like this. So something happened at the peak that caused this to trend downwards. Cedric the Entertainer. Cedric says, Dr. Dunbar, not Dr. Dubar. If you are the result of a minority hire, would this change how you view the company you work for? Well, okay, and I'm going to be discreet about this, Cedric. I'm going to be discreet. One of the rumors about me in my current station is that I checked 3 boxes. 1, 2, 3. Okay. One was my race. One was my gender. Okay. But also my skill set. So I'm going to be discreet here. The person who hired me, they, I'm not going to specify the gender. They wanted to show that they believed in diversity. That's part of the rumor, but they were also looking for someone with my scientific expertise. So I can say that I was at least not hired just because I was a black male. I think things lined up where I'm a black male, but also they were looking for someone with my expertise. So I think you want to get diverse, qualified people in there. Otherwise, if they're not qualified to do the work, they may get in there and crash and burn, and it may cause more problems in the long run. So you want to at least make sure that they're qualified, a qualified, diverse person. Cynical Optimist says, we'll be discussing recommendations to advance radical equity. Is that radical or racial equity within the Science Museum staff community? Not sure if that's a better explanation. We'll be discussing recommendations to advance, I think that's racial equity within the Science Museum staff community. Okay. Right. Yeah. So I think, you want a diverse group, a group that reflects the percentages of society. But I think going back, you want to make sure everybody, it is, it's a level playing field. And I think that's the issue, is that you want to make sure it's a level playing field, from reading skills to proficiency in STEM to proficiency in mathematics, so that's what you're judging people on. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other comments here? Any other questions or comments or thoughts? Any other questions, comments, or thoughts before I wrap up? If not, I will go into my closing spiel here. Yeah, I just wanted to come on and do something on this. This popped up in my Twitter feed. Cedric, I appreciate your participation tonight. He says, Dr. Dunbar, do you think that DEI would affect sports programs too? These are DEI programs that almost exclusively target Black athletes. I'm not sure which sports programs you are referring to. If you're talking about college, well, we know that the revenue sports, those are mostly Black men playing those revenue sports. So I don't think that those programs would be under attack. In a few words, Cedric, what are you referring to with regards to sports programs? Are you referring to K through 12? You're referring to high school? Are you referring to, what are you referring to there? And I'll hang on for a few more minutes. College programs. I think as far as money's involved, I don't think they will. And if we're talking about the revenue sports, basketball, football, interfering with those or disrupting those would cost the universities money. So I don't foresee those being disturbed in any way. Yeah, the revenue sports. No, I don't foresee those being disrupted in any way. Okay. All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this stream up. I have a lot of work to do tomorrow before I shut things down tomorrow. So I'm going to uh, make something to eat and veg for a little bit and relax. But Cedric, Cynical Optimist, thank you for hanging out in my chat. AB Media and Snowman, thank you also for stopping through, albeit briefly. If you're watching on the playback, please definitely smash that like button and also consider subscribing to the channel. And I will say one more thing, about this lady here. I didn't feature this piece. There's a reason I didn't feature it. But as I was walking around work earlier, I was thinking about this lady, Antoinette Bonnie Candia-Bailey. Okay, the woman who committed suicide. What I will say is that when you're talking about the C-suite positions, this All-Star G, he says this was good. Thank you for that feedback. Yeah, this is my brand is a little more going back to Cedric. My brand is a little more collegial and maybe not as controversial. So I appreciate that. All-Star G. I'm from the STEM community. I'm a scientist. So, but I was thinking about a gentleman named Douglas Murray. Douglas Murray is British. Douglas Murray is a writer, thinker, and speaker, and one of my heroes, Malcolm Gladwell. Some of you guys know that Malcolm Gladwell is one of my heroes, and Malcolm Gladwell engaged in a debate with Douglas Murray, and I don't think Malcolm did well in that debate. But Douglas Murray, he said something interesting. He said that when you're talking about access and diversity, it's almost always for the C-suite, for the corporate management positions. Okay, whether it's in private sector companies or at institutions for higher learning. So when you're talking about those things, you're never talking about construction companies. You're never talking about the blue collar trades. You're never talking about equal representation in those areas. But what I will say is that when you're talking about academia, being an administrator, a high up administrator in academia, or even in the federal government, you're talking about a lot of stress. If you're talking about a government agency or an NGO, a non-governmental organization or a nonprofit, when you're talking about being the manager or the president or the provost of any kind of institution, okay, you're talking about a lot of stress. You're talking about a lot of politics. You're talking about a lot of potential. If you're not aligned with the right people, if you're not aligned with the right parties, if you're just there as a figurehead or as a hire, and the board of trustees, if they don't like you or if they don't think you're supposed to be there, people can make your life hell. And that's something that we don't talk about a lot with the white collar professions. Okay, there's a the salaries may be high, the prestige may be high, but there's a huge potential price to pay for the white collar professions. And if you're not aligned with the people in those organizations, if they don't think you should be there, or if you burn bridges, they can, your life can be very, very difficult. So that's just a little public service announcement. If you know someone going into those sectors, if you know someone who's gunning for that to be the president or an administrator or a director, if you're not protecting yourself and if you're not aligned with the right people going in there, it could be your mental health could take a huge hit. So, and that's why you hear things like in that piece, you hear things about microaggressions and Mr. Z. Mr. Z pops up as soon as I say microaggressions. And Mr. Z knows why that's a bit of an inside joke. What's going on, Mr. Z? But in pursuit of these positions, there are a lot. While the prestige is there, while the notoriety is there with being a school president or an agency director or a division director, the cost on your mental health and your personal well-being in some instances can be tremendous. So, and I think I'm going to land the plane there. Mr. Z, I'm tempted to do your thing, but I can't do it the way you do it. That sound. I'm not going to try it tonight. I'm not going to try it tonight. Yeah. Cynical Optimist. If you look at my community tab, my community tab for this channel, I just posted an interview over on my science channel because I do have a science channel. Okay. I interviewed a physicist, and that's on my community tab. So if you're not subbed over there, please consider subbing over there. So I am a STEM professional. And over there, I just talk science. Now, let's see. I will say this before I go. Cedric asked a question about associating with individuals like BGS Ibmore, whether or not that ruins my brand. No. I just want to say that working in the federal government and presenting, and I've said this a million times, presenting as myself, I do need to be aware of my personal image and my digital footprint, because people are checking my digital footprint and what I present here online. When you have a day job and people are watching, sometimes you don't know that they're watching, and a conversation, topic area may be important. Okay. But you have to be careful. I've realized I have to be careful about what I'm presenting online. So, and I think BGS classified me as manosphere adjacent. So that means, I don't know if you all ever read Kingdom Come. There's a comic book called Kingdom Come. Green Lantern was sitting in his satellite outside the Earth, keeping watch on what was happening on the Earth below him. He was part of the Justice League, but he was up in orbit, sitting on his throne, watching everything. Okay, so I'm adjacent. All right. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. For those of you who don't know, well, I'm working on a book, and I actually, Mr. Z, you're not careful. Mr. Z says, "Well, Mr. Z, you do have a distinct voice. I mean, I have a distinct voice. So I imagine if people were listening, they might be able to identify who you are based upon your voice. So you might want to use a voice box or something, like in Batman in Batman versus Superman." He says, Mr. Z says, that is exactly why I'm careful about what I say, Doc. It's because of my job, but also because of the PhDs. I want y'all here, so I make sure not to embarrass our professionals. Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Z. And people, the things that are talked about online, people are, well, I open up every show by saying we're all living in different worlds and not everybody is privy to the same information. The things that we talk about here, people on the outside don't know. And well, I just mentioned Batman. There's a popular line from Batman Begins, starring Christian Bale and Liam Neeson. And Carmine Falcone tells Bruce Wayne, "This is a world you'll never understand, and you'll always fear what you don't understand. This is a world you'll never understand, and you'll always fear what you don't understand." So people who are not in some of these conversations, who have never had exposure to some of these conversations, when they hear it, they fear it, they don't understand. And yeah, I think that's the best way to say it. And that's not to say that the conversations are not important. Dr. T.S. Johnson, for those of you guys in the chat there who didn't see my two discussions with Dr. T.S. Johnson, he said that about the manosphere. Some of the conversations are fiery and uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that they're not important. So, Mr. Z, I was going to say something else, but I got sidetracked. Oh, Mr. Z, I was watching one of Dr. Chris Marsh's videos at lunch at work today. So I did kind of dig in and see what she was talking about in one of her interviews. Someone else from the Academy, everyone, Dr. Chris Marsh, a published author, very, very well. You can look her up if you want to learn some more. I'm trying to wrap up here, but Mr. Z, there was one other thing I was going to say. And unfortunately, it will probably dawn on me once I log off, but I'm going to steal one of Mr. Z's sayings: listen to manosphere content and non-manosphere content. Last night, Mr. Z was talking about Professor Scott Galloway and what's happening to boys and men in this country and how expensive things are. Listen to manosphere content and non-manosphere content. That's copyrighted by Mr. Z. So, all right. When Mr. Z came in, I'm a writer. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I did, yeah, Dr. T.S. Johnson. Let me slow down. I did cite Dr. T.S. Johnson's work. I did cite Dr. T.S. Johnson's book early on in my book, because part of my book is it's a basketball story, but it's also about boys and men, black boys and men, and what happens when there aren't enough men around in your ecosystem. There are going to be deficits. So I did cite Dr. T.S. Johnson's book in my own book. You guys will see, if you purchase a copy, you'll see his book referenced early on in the preface. Yeah. Preface, prologue, epilogue in the preface. All right, everyone. So I'm a writer. I do have a newsletter. Thank you to everyone who signed up. Shout out to Toya for letting me know that she read it. Toya read it. I did put a surprise in the back of my last newsletter. And the link is here. There is a 2-paragraph greeting. for those readers out there, not everybody reads. Shout out to Diamond Dave. Shout out to Diamond Dave. There aren't a lot of readers on YouTube. People want to watch content. Shout out to Diamond Dave. He's been on fire lately. Mr. Z, I'm tempted to do your thing, but I can't do it the way you do it. So I'm going to start laughing if I try it. So there's a 2-paragraph greeting here, and you just click that subscribe button there at the bottom. Please consider signing up for the Big Words LLC newsletter while I'm still doing it. As I described, business has changed. I've just experienced a change in my business, and I have to figure out how to pivot from that. So we might get to a point where I'm not doing a newsletter anymore, but for now I'm doing it. So please consider signing up. That link is in the description box. Mr. Z, I'm tempted to try it and do your thing, but I don't want to, I don't know if I should try it. All right, I'll try it one time, Mr. Z. But I should probably do it slowly. 3, 2, 1. I did it. I'll do it one more time. 3, 2, 1. See? All right, everyone. I didn't do that the way Mr. Z does it, but I got a lot closer this time than I did on the previous try. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your night. If you're watching on the playback and you want to donate something to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. My Cash App and PayPal are in the description box. If you're watching on the playback, you can also leave a super thanks. Was this Hire Toya, our grammar snob? Is that to write my newsletter, or is that to make the Mr. Z sound as well? All right, I'm trying to finish up here. All right, everyone. Yeah, if you want to donate something, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. You can also leave a super thanks. Please like, share, and subscribe, especially if you are new. And with that, everyone have a good night. I'll talk to you the next time. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Okay, so Mr. Z, so it sounds like everybody has been trying to make your sound. The engine startup. I haven't heard her try it, but it sounds like she can do it too. So, all right, everyone, have a good night. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.